The banquet scene, or cylinder scene, from Sumerian Mesopotamia is going to be an interesting piece. It acts as a signature. Why? Because we have a largely illiterate society, so they aren't going to be writing their own names. There are only certain people who are going to be educated and capable of doing that. A seal like this, especially worn around the neck or the wrist, they have a hole drilled through them, for example, would act as that signature. And it is assumed to be something that would be close to the person or on the person on a regular basis. Now, this seal also indicates trade because we see identical seals at the same time in the Indus Valley civilizations as well as in Sumeria. So the idea is that there is trade going back and forth. This is one of those specific items that proves it. Now, in terms of quality, much like the statuettes, these begin to decline when artists have to keep up with demand. We see mass-produced items, not just the Ashwina statuettes, but again, these cylinder seals. Some are higher quality, some are lower quality, depending on who's asking for them and their purpose. It is quite possible that people might have multiples, especially if they're particularly wealthy. And it indicates a change in the society because suddenly we need a signature, and a signature is only necessary when you have contracts or ownership. You could imagine this being used, for example, on a wax seal, covering a vase that might contain olive oil that you own, but you don't keep the amphora or the vase of olive oil in your home. Maybe you keep it in some kind of centralized storage, or wine, or any number of other things. It also has a narrative. In this case, what we're looking at is a banquet scene, primarily interpreted as a banquet of women. Now, this is going to be unusual because in many societies, we don't see depictions of women in sort of everyday life, much less with the hierarchy of scale that we see here, where we see the seated women clearly larger than their servants who are working around them, who are in a standing position. So we get the idea of some element of equality. And again, this is not perfect equality. We are not looking at a situation where we are a matriarchal society or a society of equals. What we are looking at, likely, is a scenario where women do play a larger role, like I discussed earlier, because it's the ancient world. They're going to need to have that ability to have ownership of property or the ability to inherit, simply because their husbands might be dying in larger numbers, especially if trade is such a large factor within this society. So it becomes indicative of something else. And that's what art does oftentimes, is it indicates different things that we can assume are happening within the society. And it gives us that view of everything from gender roles to social norms that we oftentimes complain that we don't see in the literature of various societies.